Alright, so let's look at the quadratic inequalities. So we can use the graph of a parabola to solve these quadratic inequalities. So, in your notes on the top of page 69, so for the parabola y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. Okay, so when it equals 0, so ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Use the graph of... Okay, yep, equals 0. That means the solution lies on the x-axis. Okay, where y equals 0. When it's greater than 0, we have our inequality, the graph, of the parabola above the x-axis, and when it's less than 0, it's below. So it will become more apparent with these examples what I'm talking about. Alright, examples A, solve. So example, solve A. X squared take away 16 is less than 0. Okay, so what I need is all the values of A that makes that inequality true. Okay, so thinking about when we did equations work, okay, way back in chapter 3, term 1, when we had equation and the similar techniques we had for inequation or inequality, but with a couple of extra features that we need to consider. Okay, so what you do is you treat that as a equation and use your equation skills to solve. So x squared, which is less than 16, by moving the number on the right. The x squared is less than plus or minus the square root of 16. Remember, when you take the square root, you will have two solutions, possible solutions, and depending on the context of the question and what's underneath the third will influence your answer. Thank you. X is less than the positive or negative square root of 16. Okay, now the critical points. Okay, so we need to look at these critical points as we did with the equation in order to solve for inequation. Okay, so x is equal to plus or minus 4. That's the critical point. Okay, so we solve for 0, in other words. So if I were to draw the graph of y equals x squared take away 16, I'll solve for 0. Okay, so find the x-intercept. I'll put y equals 0, which is what I've done here, which has already been told for you in the question. Alright, that means the x-intercept's at plus or minus 4, either side. Symmetrical about the origin. Okay, the y value will come from substituting x equals 0. Okay, so 0 squared take away 16. That means you're going to have a y value of negative 16. Okay, so from that, this was last lesson's work. Draw a rough sketch of your parabola. So you're not asked to sketch it, you would asked to solve inequality. So you don't need to be formal about your graph because you're not getting marked for it.
But do you still have to do that?
So?
You're not getting marked for the graph, so you still have to draw it?
I would recommend you draw it because that will help you with your answer for what we're solving here. Okay? Negative 16. Okay, so x squared take away 16 is less than 0. Okay? So it is less than these critical points where they intercept the axis. Okay? So when we have less than, we need to consider the graph below the axis. Okay? If it was greater than, if the question was greater than, alright, what we need to do for the graph is consider the graph above the x-axis or the positive y values for the parabola. Okay, so we need to write an inequality referencing our critical point that matches the original question. So, any ideas how I'm going to write my answer there?
Oh, test the point.
Don't need to.
Or then just assume less than
You repeat what we're doing.
I don't know. You
Okay, what x value is the graph below the x-axis?
Between -4 and 4.
Between -4 and 4 has all your x values below, or in other words, you have a negative y value. Less than 0 means you have a negative number. Okay, so it's between -4 and 4. So, -4 is less than x, which is less than 4. Any number between -4 and 4, not including -4 and 4, will match the original inequality. Okay, so pick a number between -4 and 4.
0.
0. 0 squared, take away 16. -16 is -16 less than 0. Yeah.
Can you include those numbers, can't you?
Sorry?
Can you include -4 and 4? No?
No.
Why not?
4 squared.
Well, what's 4 squared?
Okay.
16 take away 16 is?
0?
Is 0 less than 0?
No.
So, yep. Alright, so pick another number between -4 and 4.
1.
1. 1 squared is? 1. Take away 16 is? -15 is -15 less than 0. Yeah, so that matches that. Pick a number greater than 4. 5 squared is? 25. Take away 16 is? 9 is 9 less than 0. No. Okay, so that's why you need to draw the sketch of the parabola.
No.
Why you need to draw the sketch of your parabola in order to justify your x value that matches your graph. So that is your final answer. So using what we've done last lesson in order to influence your answers. Alright, B. X squared. Take away 3x, take away 4 is greater than or equal to 0. Right, so you solve this as if you were solving an equation. But because of the inequality, you need to consider your critical point and the graph of the parabola, or you can test the regional point, that'll be fine. But we can use our graphing skills that we've done last lesson, do a quick sketch, and we can read the graph to get our solution. Alright, so I've got to factorise a quadratic. I need to solve for the values for x to find those critical points. How do I solve a quadratic?
X take away 4 and x plus 1.
Okay, so we're looking for two numbers multiplied to give the constant number at the end, and the same two numbers add to give the middle coefficient. Okay, so -4 times 1 is -4. -4 plus 1 is -3. So x take away 4, x plus 1 is greater than or equal to 0. Okay, and then the next thing you need to show is your critical points. Okay, CP, critical point. Okay, so x equals 4 or x equals -1. Right, is this a concave up or concave down parabola?
Concave up.
The direction that it opens upwards. So concave up, right? Because I don't need to find the y value as such, because I'm not getting marking this. I just need to know where the critical point and the orientation of your parabola will be sufficient in answering the question. So 4 and -1. Okay, so concave up parabola with two intercepts means part of your parabola is below the x-axis and part of it will, and the rest of it, sorry, will be above it. -1 and 4. Okay, so once you've found those critical points and you've graphed the parabola, we need to now look back to the question. Okay, so for what values for x will have that quadratic greater than or equal to 0?
Wait, no, and -1 and greater than 4.
Good, okay, so,
Equal to.
but yes, she's right in principle. So, greater than or equal to 0 means you're getting a positive value back. So you're considering where y is positive. Okay, so you are considering upwards from that graph. And the original inequality is greater than or equal, so we can equal -1 and we can equal +4. So, if you go this way in your x value, you're still getting a positive y value. If you go this side of your x value at the critical point there, you're still having a positive y value. So x is less than or equal to -1, any number less than -1 or equal to, and x is greater than or equal to 4, going back the other way. So any number less than or equal to -1, or any number greater than or equal to 4 will match that inequality. Okay? Anything between will return a negative number. Okay, so that will be your way of checking as well, by checking some point. What happens when you have x equals -2? What happens when x equals 0? What happens when x equals 5? Considering what you've done previously. See. Right, 8 plus 2m, take away m squared, which is greater than 0. So, a little bit different in a couple of regards here. Right, so, you're going to do it exactly the same way as you had with your x's, alright? So we're going to graph it, and we're just going to have to change the variable at the end. The other thing is, it is not in decreasing power from the start as well, so I'm going to consider that when I work out the critical point. So, -m squared plus 2m plus 8 is greater than 0. So just reordering it in what I'm familiar with. Now, what is the significance of this minus sign here? It will be concave downward, okay? And you need to make a note of that now, because I'm about to change some of the details there. So, I want this positive, so I can use my factorising skills a bit more straightforward. 8 and 4 2's, yep, it'll work. So, negative m squared take away 2m take away 8 is greater than 0, so I'm factorising a negative out, so I have my m squared as positive. Okay, and now what we're working on, if I divide both sides by -1, I'll have something that looks better for me to work with. Right, so we need to solve and find those critical points for m. So the two numbers multiplied to give -8, and the same two numbers add to give -2.
Would the sign flip because you're dividing by a negative?
Ah, yep, true. Good. Okay, remember when you're dividing by a negative? Not that it really matters for this question. Yep, so when you're multiplying and dividing by a negative number, the sign of the inequality is reversed. But it won't matter. But no way. Yes, it will, so. Alright, so two numbers, sorry. Just, good. Just 4 and 2. Just 4 and 2. -2. -4, sorry, yep. So, m take away 4. M plus 2 is less than 0. Okay, so -4 times 2 is -8. -4 plus 2 is -2. Okay. So, the critical point. So m equals 4 and m equals -2.
So it's inside.
Okay. For this particular expression here, this is concave up.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
And that's what we need to be mindful of, okay?
So it's between them.
Right, so 4 and -2. For this manipulation I've done, it is the concave up parabola. Crosses at 4 and -2. Okay, just a rough sketch there to get the idea of your solution, and as Amanda's already correctly stated, the solution will be between. Okay, because what we've chosen to work with, the inequality is less than 0. Okay, which is different to here, but because of the negative sign out the front and back to front, I've just tidied it up, made it a bit more friendly to work with. Okay, so where is this graph less than 0? Less than 0 means we are below the axis there. So -2 is less than m, which is less than 4. And of course they don't equal because the inequality is the strictly greater than for the original. Okay, if you're not convinced that's the answer, what you need to do is test some points in the region. Okay, so if I pick 0, for example, for m, because that's between -2 and 4, so 8 plus 0, take away 0, so 8, which is greater than 0. Alright, so that works. If I picked 5, 8 plus 2 times 5, which is 10. So 8 plus 10 is 18. Take away 5 squared. So 5 squared is 25. 10 take away 18, sorry. Take away 25 is -7, which is not greater than 0. Alright, so that's one technique you can use to check your solution. D. Alright, so we have a quadratic with the coefficient of the leading term, not 1. So do we remember how to factorise this?
Difference of 19 and times to 60.
Yes. Now what did we learn yesterday though? The quadratic formula. So if you don't want to go through the work and work out all these numbers, factorise by grouping in pairs, get your solution, one benefit you guys have is your quadratic formula. So let's have a go with that one. So x equals, who remembers it?
B squared negative, plus or minus
What was the first bit?
squared
Well, let's go back. First bit.
It was B.
Amanda?
B squared.
No.
B.
No. Okay.
Oh,
What goes in there?
B
B
squared.
squared.
What comes next? Amanda?
Plus 4, 8, no.
Oh,
I didn't remember the end bit.
Kyle?
I just looked at it.
Ah.
Negative 4AC
Yeah.
over 2A.
Yeah, see,
Good.
that's what.
Okay, you need to know that.
That's the discriminant.
What?
It's B squared take away 4AC.
Yes.
What, so it's whatever's under the square.
Yeah. Most of it including the square root, isn't it?
Do we need to? Alright, we'll talk about that in a moment. Alright, so B is -19, so negative B is a negative 19. Be careful with your sign, otherwise your answers will be wrong. 99.9999% of the time, unless you got lucky. Plus or minus -19 or squared, so that will always return a positive value. Okay, because we're squaring the value for B, so that will always be positive.
Unless it has I.
Minus 4 times 6 times 10, 2 times 6.
That was going the long way. That was the 17.
I like that way. What way?
3,
I'm doing that.
361 is it? What's 19 squared?
Hello, what's 19 squared?
361,
Yeah.
I hope. Minus 4 times 6, which is 24. Take times 10, 240 over 12. 241. Oh, nice. We know what the square root of 121 is. So that means when if we were to factorise this using chapter 3 skills, we will have 2 whole numbers. Not whole numbers, we have 2 rational numbers. Okay. So we've got 2 solutions to need to consider. 19 plus 11, which is 30 divided by 12. Both have a factor of 6, 5 over 2. Remember, fractions are always in the simplest form, unless told otherwise. Okay. And then you've got 19 take away 11, which is 8. So if we were to factorise using the formula, you won't have 2 whole numbers to work with. So there's your benefit of using your quadratic formula straight away for these concepts. Okay. Right. So there's your critical points. Okay, because your answer will be dependent on which side of those critical points. Okay, so we've got 2/3 and we have 5 over 2. We know we have a concave up parabola because the coefficient of the leading term is positive, and I know it's concave up, and I know there's 2 intercepts because of my 2 different solutions. Okay, so now we've done the graph, we need to now consider the question. So where is this graph less than or equal to 0?
Between 2/3.
Okay, so remember, we're less than or equal to 0 means we are below the axis. If we are greater and or equal to, we are above, and including and or. So, remembering back here we have an equals component, so your answer also needs to be an equals component. Okay, if you miss that, or you put an equal component for the original that doesn't, okay, chances are pretty good that you're not going to receive your full marks.
Isn't there some instances where it may not
Sorry.
be, because whenever I do inequalities, I test 5 points.
Yep.
And sometimes there's a greater than when if the main question says greater than or equal to.
Because we're just working with linear functions there. Okay, so when it's quadratic, we can graph the critical point of a straight line,
Yeah.
and then we could consider the graph, couldn't we, above or below the axis?
Yeah. It's just that sometimes it's greater than or equal to and sometimes it's not.
That's when you have absolute values involved. That's when you have to check your points more so. Right, any other questions? So that's 10.2.